Welcome to Gatecrashers, a podcast dedicated to kicking open the door to your next favorite thing. Our mission, our creed, our code is this: to make all nerdy things more approachable and accessible to everyone. We want you to find a universe that you'll fall in love with. I'm Jake, and I use he, him pronouns.
Hi, I'm Dan. I use he, him pronouns as well. Today, we're joined by Dan Waters, writer of Homesick Pilots, Coffin Bound, Sandman Universe, Lucifer, Limbo, and the soon-to-be-released The Picture of Everything Else, and Superman/Wonder Woman from Future State. Dan, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we're very excited to have you. So most people know by now that we're pretty hard-hitting journalists, so we like to open all of our interviews with a very tough question. What's your favorite sandwich?
Oh, man. That is a hard question. I mean, the Christmas sandwiches have just come back, so I'm probably not going to be eating anything else for the next, month.
What is a Christmas sandwich?
Oh, do you guys know how Christmas sandwich? Just generally turkey and cranberry sauce and all that good stuff. Like a leftover sandwich, but all the cafe chains and stuff do them.
We have them for Thanksgiving. So they call them the local chain around me is called Wawa. It's a gas station essentially, but they have really great sandwiches and they call it the Gobbler. I never heard it called the Christmas sandwich before though. That's a better name.
Yeah, because I think our Christmas dinner is your Thanksgiving dinner, right? The whole turkey thing.
Yeah, we flipped the script. Everybody's
we got lots of Christmas traditions that float around around here. So
yeah. So I did want to start off with your indie work first. And recently you released Homesick Pilots, which I am truly and massively in love with. Love all of it.
Thanks very much.
But I got to ask, what the hell was going on in your mind to make a haunted house into a Megazord?
I
mean, to be honest, it's I love ghost stories and the ideas behind ghost stories, and I write a lot of them and read a lot of them. And my general starting point is that the haunted house or the ghosts are traumas in themselves, and that's kind of what they stand for metaphorically most of the time. And the haunted house is it's an extrapolation of that. It's a container of ghosts, which is therefore a container of traumas, which is basically a human head. And I just kept seeing things, ghost stories being told, especially sort of a few things recently, which kind of just lost that metaphor along the way and kept hitting that point of, we need to resolve the story. So we're going to have them confront the ghost and therefore defeat the ghost, because that's sort of the standard. That's how storytelling works, is you confront something and you defeat it and you're victorious and we get the good ending that satisfies, all the readers or the watchers. And I just don't think that's how traumas really work. That's something you have to just live with and get on with. And you can grapple with them and you can accept them, but they're still there. It doesn't mean they go away. So that sort of took us to the idea of having to just walk with them and work with them, which is how it ended up literally getting up and walking away.
And so this jumps way far ahead for me, but I did want to ask this question next because you did get something I wanted to chat about. Not to get too far into the spoiler territory, but the lead character, Amy, is in the foster system, and her mother, we don't know too much about how she died, but she has passed. With that sort of being a running theme, is her joining with this haunted house her finding her place of belonging and dealing with her own trauma?
I mean, those are definitely the things we're engaging with, but there are also sort of ways you can go looking for something and then get either taken advantage of or find yourself trying to make yourself fit somewhere you don't quite. So I think those are all kind of themes that we're digging into. Especially, like, I mean, even the sort of the thing of reading the book in the punk scene is definitely that as well. Like, that's a place where a lot of people can sort of find themselves and find somewhere that they can find people that will support them that they maybe don't have other places.
And you touched on the punk thing. So the whole story, it has very heavy punk vibes, especially with the bowling alley show and then wanting to throw a house show. Where did that aesthetic sort of come from for you? Were you a punk, Dan? Are you a punk?
Yeah, I mean, I still... It's funny, I posted a picture of myself a while ago on Twitter in which I, like, from when I was like 17, I had a big mohawk and studded leather jacket and stuff. And I was weirdly surprised at how people were surprised at the fact that people were surprised, because in my head, I still look like that. I've just gotten steadily lazier with how I dress and do my hair and things like that, which I guess just sort of comes with aging. But yeah, I mean, that's a huge part of my life still. I still go to shows. I still play in bands. Well, I mean, I still did go to shows up until 2020, obviously. But yeah, I mean, it's always been a big sort of part of... it was a big part of growing up for me. It was a big part of my life.
And with this sort of punk stories comes a lot of, as you mentioned, sort of like found family vibes. Do you will we be seeing more of that through the series with the band and the house itself?
For sure. And like with the found family thing also comes sort of scene politics and like the sort of crap you will go through in order to sort of keep your place in a scene. Like, I always find I always think the punk scene is something that can either sort of save you or break you, which again felt like a good parallel with the idea of the haunted house and Ami's relationship to that. Depending on where you sort of fall in it and how you engage with it and how you continue to engage with it as well as you sort of get older and things like that. I think that probably part of it does just come from being a bit older now and still engaging with that stuff. And your relationship has to kind of change, and you have to kind of look at some stuff a little bit more retrospectively, or else I think you're going to slip into sort of Arrested Development. And the scene is the comic's not about them necessarily sort of aging in that same way, but it's definitely, I think for me, being a bit older and being able to look back at being that age and look back at how you engage with things and how you sort of fool yourself in certain ways was like a really interesting thing to get my teeth into.
And so with the punk scene comes the creative names, and I come from kind of a belief that names have like power to them. What inspired the name Homesick Pilots, and what kind of power does that have for you?
I mean, annoyingly, as the writer, that name was entirely Casper. We were on the phone and we were just shooting names back and forth, and which is like a way too familiar situation for me. I've always played in bands, and the sort of nature of the punk scene and things is you end up breaking up a lot and forming new bands, and even with the same people that you were in bands with before, and trying to find the name was always the hardest part. So you would always end up just on the phone throwing names back and forth, and so we ended up in a sort of similar situation to that, trying to come up with a name for this punk band that would also fit the name of the comic. And yeah, Homesick Pilots was one that Casper threw out, and we liked the ring to it, and it just sort of worked on all these different levels thematically. So once we sort of found that one, we didn't really talk about it much further. It just sometimes things just fit.
Just clicks. And to say that you and Casper Wingard as collaborators are like a dynamic duo would be an understatement, just because the way your writing and art meld together in this aesthetic is incredible. What is your joint creative process like? Is it just like that, like talking over the phone, pitching ideas, or just how do you do it?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much that. There's different process with every different artist. But Casper and I did our first book together with Limbo. And we sort of did that without knowing what the conventions were and how you're sort of supposed to do things. So we just sort of did it the way that worked for us. So we've always sort of, even though we've worked, we sort of got pulled different directions by the big two after Limbo. So I ended up doing stuff at DC. He's been doing stuff at Marvel, but we've been chatting always. Like, we're just mates, and we chat almost every day, at least over text or whatever. So it was really easy to sort of slip back into that old way of working together, where we just chat things out for ages on the phone before anything sort of hits the script. Which then means my scripts can be a little bit looser because we sort of both know what's going to happen in a scene, or at least where we're heading, what the characters are, who they are, what the monsters are, and who they are. So yeah, it's a lot of direct collaboration, which is something you can't always do as much with other companies, where they have their sort of systems in place and there's the sort of buffer of editors in the way. This is just us. We're just sort of making something as it comes to us.
And you did mention you script a little bit loosely. I don't want to spoil the page in issue 1 of Homesick Pilots, but there's the page with the 2-page spread with the house split in half, and it has such a dynamic way of moving the panels from 2 different directions, which you don't see much anywhere, to be honest. Like, it's so interesting. Was that loosely scripted by you and Casper ran with that, or was that something you both collaborated on to make?
Yeah, I think Casper, like early on, he sort of said he'd like to do that sort of cross section of the house. And then I definitely scripted the way that the dialogue sort of flows back and forth. I think for that's one of the ones we did this a few times on Limbo as well, where I'd end up having an idea for a spread, and I basically would end up building it in Microsoft Paint. We're using sort of just boxes and arrows, and I think this was another one of those where I just put boxes and arrows and just went, they're going this way, and then they're going this way, which makes me sound so very clever. But then Casper has to make that actually work. So that comes down to him being able to do that, and being able to having strong enough visual storytelling that he can sort of guide you across the page in ways that you're not used to reading. That's what blew me away the most in the first issue. Like, when I got to read it from whatever review or copy I got, I just like sat there looking at this page and was like, wow, this book is like something special, because like that was something I did not expect. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, we always try and do stuff that's, again, like we came to this without kind of knowing what you were supposed to do or what you were allowed to do, so we just sort of did stuff. And I think we definitely kind of want to just keep doing that as much as we can.
Yeah. Please do.
More house robots.
More house robots. Yeah, well, I mean, let's hope the numbers stay up and we can keep making house robots until.
All right, people, you heard them. Keep buying.
So before we get to a picture of everything, I did want to ask one question about White Noise, because you are the third member that we've got. We have one more, and then we'll have the whole set. What is it like working with a collaborative group like that? Do you feel when you send them your projects, they're a little bit, they don't pull any punches with their criticism, or are you bouncing ideas back and forth like constantly?
I mean, yeah, like the whole point is that we don't put any punches. the comic scene is very small. The comics industry is very small, and therefore it just by its nature ends up being very supportive, which is great and wonderful, and warm and fuzzy and all that. But sometimes you don't want that. Sometimes you want to be told if you're doing something crap. and White Noise was definitely kind of, in a way, almost like a kind of pact to do that, to tell each other if something wasn't working, or to find ways to make it work even better if it was working. So it's always a kind of trial by fire kind of thing, but it also just it takes away that sort of need for any ego stroking, which also, when you're just trying to make a script work and you know it's not working, you don't really need to be told like, oh, this will be really cool, or it's really great, but we can just sort of go straight into it and talk about what's not working. And that is, it sounds maybe like cold or rough, but actually that's a huge safety net, because it means you can do stuff that's way more, or you can try and do stuff that's far more ambitious, because you're going to be told if it's not working.
Yeah, and clearly, not to stroke anyone's ego, it's kind of working out for the gang. All of you were kind of making huge waves everywhere.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, that was always the sort of, I clubbed together with those guys because I really believe in their work, and I'm always really impressed by their work. So yeah, I don't know how egocentric it sounds. It sounds for me to say that. I'm not super surprised because I love those guys' work. So I always expected them to do super well.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. So with your new Vault book, Picture of Everything Else, I know it was influenced by Oscar Wilde's The Picture of Dorian Gray, but it also seems to be influenced by just art itself and the act of creation and destruction. What made you want to write a horror with this sort of framework?
It's a good question. I don't know. I have this weird thing where I worry about art and doing art for a job. I worry sometimes that it gets too navel gazy, which I know isn't a particularly outrageous thing to say, because obviously it does. But there's also a strange thing with writing where we have this tool with which we can talk about the entire world, and we can talk about the whole, all of human experience. It's literally a tool with which to communicate human experience. And yet it has a tendency to get quite caught up in talking about itself. Because as a tool, it's quite a neurotic one, and it gets caught up in, am I communicating correctly? Am I utilizing this tool well enough? Is this tool sufficient to communicate? All of these sort of questions become really, really prevalent, and that's how we end up with sort of major genres of sort of like metafiction and sort of postmodernism as a whole sort of train of thought, which I love. I love all of that stuff, but we just I sometimes worry that art's going to get too lost in itself, or not it's going to get, but sometimes it does get too lost in itself. We can talk about anything, and I say all this having just literally made a book about artists. But it's I think there's a kind of existential horror to that entire theme, and I just wanted to dig into it.
Yeah, especially with the whole like creating artist content type things. I think there's a lot of horror to that. Like, why are you creating? What are these tools you're using for what reason? But with the art of the book, it kind of not self-referential, but it does have it has a kind of the mechanics of art itself. Like the blood splatter is sort of watercolor painting. And I wanted to know if the project was developed with Kishore Mohan initially, or did they come to the project later?
Kishore, I basically called up Kishore the day I had the idea. We were working on a pitch for something else, for like this horror Western fairy tale-ish thing set in the Klondike Mountains at the end of the gold rush, which I'd like to go back to. But we just made this pitch, and he spent so much time and effort on it. And then I had this idea for the picture, everything else, and I sort of called him up and went, "Hey, I know we just made that whole pitch, but I just had this idea, and I really think you need to draw it." And entirely to his credit, within 10 minutes, he was, talking to me about the correct gas lamps for Paris in 1899. And he was just really excited by the whole thing and really raring to get going. So yeah, he was there from day one. I might have done the book regardless, but it would have been a very different book. I think having an artist who does these beautiful sort of watercolors and can sort of switch between acrylics and can switch even between sort of styles is a massive boon to that kind of book.
Thank you for mentioning the watercolors and the acrylics, just because I didn't want to ask, because I know you aren't the artist, but like the blending of the different, I don't know, mediums. That's it. That's the different mediums. It fits so well with the story and what it's trying to do, in my opinion. I was luckily able to read it, and it is mind blowing. I actually read both of Pilots and this on the same day, and I was like, damn, I really got to get this Dan guy on the show. And lucky enough.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. It's been a weird year, because I wrote those first issues really a long time ago at this point. Both of these books were supposed to launch sometime around the summer, before 2020 became 2020.
2020.
Yeah, it is kind of strange that there's a slight disconnect that people are just seeing them now.
I will let Jake get into Future State, which I know we are both beyond excited. I can't even describe it.
Oh yeah, we're pumped.
Oh, me too.
I mean, it's the only event that's entirely in my pull box. All right, so you're writing Superman / Wonder Woman, or would it be Superman and Wonder Woman? I don't know. But for the Future State event, which has a timeline from 2025 all the way to the very end of time, was that a restrictive or helpful thing in plotting out the story of two characters that other people are also writing?
Oh no, that was great, because it was kind of, I think the whole idea behind, not to speak for the people who put Future State in place, but it just felt like a way to really let us sort of cut loose a bit and tell stories that didn't have to be super tightly wound to exactly what everyone else was doing at any given moment.
Well, did you coordinate? How did you have contact the other people who were writing the two characters and ask them anything, or was those? I mean, I think there's like a buffer year of like 20 years between one section of the character for John and then 30 years or something like that. So did you have to coordinate it all with them, or was it kind of like the time was just enough space between the events that you could just, run wild with it?
I mean, yeah, pretty much. It was, the editors are definitely on top of all that kind of stuff and making sure everything fits together. So it was more of a thing that they would tell me if I was doing something that was going to really mess stuff up for someone else. I got sent a couple of their scripts and stuff that was a little bit further along, so I could get a feel for where these characters had been and where they were going. But yeah, it was a pretty easy process.
Okay. So the solicitation says that your two leads, John Kent and Yara Flor, don't get along. So what makes their relationship so testy?
Well, the whole thing with the story we're telling is I wanted to go to a future that was like, especially this year, there's enough post-apocalypse to go around, or at least pre-apocalypse, or all that kind of stuff. So I really wanted to go to a sort of more optimistic vision of the future and sort of go like, well, this is a world in which we've had superheroes for X number of decades, and we've grown up with, you know, everyone who's basically alive grew up knowing that Superman was out there and Wonder Woman was out there, and this is a different Superman and Wonder Woman, sure, but they're still those icons. And so this is what the world would look like if we really had those sort of figures there to look up to and to sort of shape the world and all that good stuff. So, but the idea that they would then have very different ways of engaging with the future and how society sort of shakes itself out. I guess it's more of an ideological schism between them, at least at the beginning of our story.
So, are we allowed to know which gods our two heroes are facing down with, or at least their pantheon? I'm big into mythology, so I really, that'll give me some sense of what's going to happen.
I think one I should definitely leave. Leave for the launch. But the other's pretty much on the cover of the first issue. Which is Solaris, who we're bringing back. Who I guess isn't super technically a god, but the idea is that I wanted to tell a story about like sun gods, and where he sort of fits into that.
So I deleted this question because it was too ridiculous. I thought it was ridiculous. But why on the second cover are the horses? Just their heads are glowing. The rest of their bodies seem kind of normal horse.
So it's so Yara Flor is a Brazilian, right? The character. So it's digging into Brazilian folklore, and there's some pretty amazing stuff in there. My sister's partner is Brazilian as well, so I was talking to him about the sort of folklore and myth stuff that he grew up with, and yeah, this is one that sort of really struck me, which is the headless mule is actually what it's called.
Oh. So how did you approach writing John Kent? How did you approach writing John Kent as opposed to him writing him as his father, Kal-El?
I mean, they're different people. So there's that. One thing I would say I really didn't want to get too caught up in, though, is I didn't want to make the whole thing just about him having hang-ups about his dad. Mm-hmm. I didn't want it to be the whole story to just be like, oh, am I living up to the lineage of Superman? I wanted to write a story where he is Superman. This is the future in which when people think about Superman, they're not thinking about like statues of Kal-El. They're thinking about Jonathan Kent. He is Superman. He is the world Superman. He's proved himself 1,000 times over. He has, fought back Brainiac and whoever else has come. He's beaten up Doomsday. He's done everything that he would need to do to prove himself as Superman.
He's had his trials,
and he's just rescued enough cats out of trees.
I mean, that's how you build up like community, saving people's cats.
Badge.
Exactly.
I wanted to jump in. Sorry. John Kent is, I don't want to speak for Jake, but one of my favorite characters. We actually
love him.
We used to be called Super Sons, the show. So it's really interesting to hear that he is Superman. There's no he's the son of Superman. So that makes me super excited. We didn't write this down, but I did want to jump in and ask how it was writing Yara Flor, who is one of the newest. It is the newest Wonder Woman, and it's so exciting for so many people. How did you approach writing a character? Well, I guess when you were writing, it's not like she was the big thing, but how does it feel now knowing that you're writing a character who has pretty much found her place among fans already?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely happened that way around, where I found out about this character and, and it's a really cool character, and she has a really cool, backstory and stuff. And I don't know how much is public knowledge, so I'm not going to talk about any of it. But yeah, so I was sent all this stuff, and I was like, oh, this is a really cool character. And I wrote her, really enjoyed writing her. And then the announcement went out, and I realized how big a deal she was to people. And that was really cool. And I'm kind of glad it happened that way around, because I didn't feel like I sat down and wrote her with all these expectations looking over my shoulder. I just wrote her as truthfully as I could, and I stand by what I wrote. So I'm I'm pleased to have seen that reaction after the fact.
And I have to jump in with one more. How was it writing? Sorry. How was it writing a character for like a Superman? You're writing Superman and Wonder Woman. How was it approaching with Wonder Woman? You didn't have as much pressure, but you probably knew that John Kent has a lot of fans. Did you feel more pressure writing these corporate characters than you would say your own?
It's different. I don't, to be honest, I wouldn't say I feel pressure in any significant way. Like, I'm trying to write the characters in ways that are interesting, and trying to find a sort of a truth to them without sounding too, pretentious. Trying not to sound too pretentious and failing. Sorry, I'm struggling to answer your question,
okay.
But I think, I don't know. Yeah, I don't feel a massive pressure. Characters are characters, and if you kind of listen to them, they reveal themselves. As long as you try and do your job well, then that's that's what
I really think this event really makes it a lot easier to not need to worry about it because of the large timeline. I mean, I think your story takes what, over 30 or 40 years away from now. I mean, the character is going to be in a very different place.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, like I said, it was, to be honest, my main reaction to sort of being asked to write these characters was, I was really pleased that they asked me to do someone that wasn't a megalomaniac. Because I've written a lot of megalomaniacs over the last couple of years. I've done 2 years writing Lucifer.
Yeah.
And then I did Ocean Master, and I've done just a couple of other big sort of horror-y things, and it's I've kind of put myself in that space. I do a lot of horror. I mean, horror is my bread and butter, and I do a lot of it in my creative own stuff. So obviously it's the thing that people come to me for. But especially this year, just being asked to do Superman, Wonder Woman was just so cool. Like, I was like, yeah, give me this. Let me build a utopia with these characters.
Oh, man, that Ocean Master broke my heart. Like, it was such a good issue. I completely forgot about it until you just said it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we had a lot of fun with that. I mean, I do enjoy writing those megalomaniacs, don't get me wrong. Like, I really enjoy it. I looked at sort of Ocean Master and I was like, okay, so he's underwater emo Dr. Doom.
Yep.
Oh.
Underwater emo Dr. Doom. Wow. That you are a writer, sir.
He's just put starfish on his face. Ooh. Oh, takes it off. I need to be healed. Ooh, no, I don't want to be healed anymore. It's more starfish.
Don't talk shit about Dr. Doom. I'll come.
Totally put a starfish in this one. You got to bring back Marine Marauder as well. That was fun.
Yeah. Oh man, I don't want to get too far into it because I'll talk all day. Jake, do you want to ask the big finale?
All right. So back to the hard-hitting journalism. If you had to build a Rube Goldberg machine, what would its purpose be?
I don't know. Solve world hunger. Be a really big machine.
It's a real big machine.
I mean, the whole purpose of the question is, what can I do to dick around to solve something? And that's a perfect thing to solve.
Yeah, I mean,
it would take so long.
Put the effort in.
Yeah, if you're gonna put the effort in,
Go big.
Yeah. Dan, thank you for joining us. What should people be picking up?
Homesick Pilots came out last week, issue 1. It's been really cool to see the response to that. I don't think I've ever had quite as big and loud a response to a book. Coffin Bound Volume 2 came out on December the 2nd. So that's just come out as well. That's a book I'm super proud of as well, with Danny and Brad Simpson and Ditchy Bidikar. That book got a little bit, I think, squished by COVID in that we launched Volume 1 the week that lockdown began in the UK, and the printers or Diamond stopped shipping in the States. So I would really say if people have liked the other stuff I've done, then check out Coffin Bound. It's strange and theatrical, and I think some of the best work I've definitely done. And Danny is just one of the best artists working. Other than that, the picture of everything else comes out December 23rd, which we already talked about at length. But I really hope people do pick that one up and check it out. I'm just finishing issue 4, and it goes places for sure. And then January, February, Superman, Wonder Woman, Future State. I think that's everything right now.
Where can people find you online?
I am at Dan PG Waters, because at Dan Waters was taken, on both Twitter and Instagram, but realistically I'm on Twitter rather than Instagram.
And you can find us at Gatecrashers Pod on Twitter and Instagram, and on our website at gatecrashers.fan. Thanks again for coming on.
Thanks very much for having me, guys. It was a blast.
Talk to you again soon.
Gatecrashers.